Hey everybody, hey protectors. Listen, welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. It's Thursday evening, back here again with Coach Brad, Coach Dustin. And listen, tonight I'm going to share with you guys how changing one word more than anything else, changing one word had a ripple effect. And this changing one word more than anything else over 28 years allowed me to master the tool of violence. We're going to cut to the intro. We're going to come back and I'm going to share with you what that one word is and how it's going to change your life too. Hey everybody, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Greg LeBuff, and I'm sharing insights for how I went for the past 30 years. I've been helping good people just like you do the. Okay. Now listen, I said in our intro, and again, I love this because this is very organic conversations because these guys have no idea what we're going to talk about before we jump on. Right, there's no pre-discussion. So tonight's going to be a very organic conversation, and I hope we get some traction with this because what I said in the intro was that I was going to share with you how changing one word more than anything else in 28 years of training allowed me to master the tool of violence. It allowed me to truly overcome being the victim of an attempted murder, to weaponizing my mind and body, and I say always two things, right? It allowed me to achieve the security that I want in my life. I always wanted to be the man, a type of man that could protect not only myself, but my family, my loved ones, other innocent people. So it allowed me to achieve that safety, the physical certainty to know that I can defend myself. But it's even more important is the transformation, the type of person that you become. On that journey to master the tool of violence, to weaponize your mind and body, you become something greater than you ever could have become without the process. A better father, better husband, just more authentically yourself. There's so many different things, and one of these nights we'll have a conversation just about those specific things. But I'm very interested to get your guys' take on this because I guarantee you've never heard me say it this way. You've never heard me frame it this way for you guys. So this will be, we've talked about this in other ways, but this will be new for you guys as well. So what am I talking about? Well, first off, I'd say that the word that got changed, I didn't change it. The word that got changed was because of my mentors, the people in my life. And so a part of this conversation is gonna be on the power of mentorship, the power of one-on-one coaching, all of that kind of stuff. But I had, since I was 10 years old, I was involved in martial arts. So I had senseis, and you have gurus, and you have, instructors and people that play the mentorship role. And I had coaching because when I got into the boxing and kickboxing, they don't call them senseis and gurus, they call them coaches and stuff. So I had coaching, I had senseis, I had all this different type of stuff. But then after my attack, when I became a complete and total victim, and I say that because it broke me. I mean, it not only physically did I not possess the skills, the knowledge, the training. I mean, it was just unlike anything that anybody had ever trained before. So not only did I fail physically, but it of course broke me and devastated me mentally and emotionally. And anybody that's been the victim of violence, understands the trauma. And even for those people that haven't, I think they can understand, the trauma that comes with facing violence. So the word that got changed belonged to my instructor, my mentor. And I'll share it with you this way. For over a decade, I had, like I said, training. I had coaches, I had senseis, I had gurus, traditional martial arts that was a street-based art. I had, boxing, kickboxing, Thai boxing was starting to come into it. All of that stuff for 10 to 12 years. And I'm talking about, intense training, as a sparring partner for two guys or a training partner, two guys that were professional fighters. I mean, it was every day, you know what I mean? It was an intense, grueling schedule. So I just want people to understand, I had a lot of high caliber, intense training. But all of that training that I had all came from a place of how to. And then after my assault, I mean, I was devastated because I was like, I knew, like, you can't unsee shit. You can't unexperience stuff. And I could never go back to training in combative sports. I couldn't go back to traditional martial arts because I knew this shit, it didn't work. And it wasn't just, a lot of people say, yeah, but maybe you just fucking sucked. Okay, maybe I did suck. But you still can't unsee or unexperience it. And it was completely foreign. It was literally like somebody, you're born not speaking a language. And then your whole existence, you're taught to speak English. And then all of a sudden, you're in this violent situation, which you think this is what I've been training for, and everybody's speaking fucking Russian. I mean, it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't matter if I sucked or didn't suck. It didn't take a genius to figure out that nothing about what I had experienced at the hands of violent predatory criminals, none of it existed in any of the training that I'd been exposed to. None of it. It was completely different. No rules, no styles, no framework, none of it. It just didn't exist. And so all of my coaches, all of my instructors before myself were all how-to. You go take martial arts. Here's how to. Here's how you do the cutters. Here's how you do the kicks. Here's how you do the blocks. Here's how you do the stance. Here's how you do the movements. Here's how you do the techniques. Here's how you do the tradition. Here's how you do the bowing. Here's how you tie your belt. It's how to. And it's somebody has taught somebody else how to, and that somebody teaches somebody else how to, and everybody was how to. And so I was part of this system. Here's how to. Then, after my assault, I couldn't go back to those things. And I was like, I have to figure this out. Somebody has to understand fucking violence. And again, long story, so I'm not going to get into that part of it. But when I finally connected with my mentors, my instructors, Paul Vunick, he was, at the time, he was just coming out of his contract teaching the Navy SEAL teams. SEAL Team 6 specifically he taught all the teams, but contracted to teach the Navy SEALs. And there was this guy who had a complete shift. Well, really, it was a shift of one word. And he was the first person that I met, and I know I'm building this story up because I want it to have impact, but I drove down there 30 hours to meet him. He couldn't even tell me, like, he wasn't even teaching publicly. He just wouldn't even talk to me. He was like, we had a conversation on the phone. I got his number through a soldier guy that I had met that was, and it was this long fucked up story. I should never have had his number. I got his number, called him. Took me a couple weeks to get up the nerve to even call him. What am I going to say to this guy? And when I did, we had about a 15-minute conversation. Then he just said, listen, I'm busy doing contracts in Virginia Beach. I'm not even, like, if you're serious at all, you need to come down and see, this needs to be done face to face. So I jumped in my car, drove 33 hours, rang his doorbell, and, when he picked himself up off the floor, because I had actually shown up, he was gracious enough to spend, time talking to me. But in that first initial conversation, I knew I'd do this for the rest of my life, because here was the first time I'd met somebody. Not only did he understand violence, his credentials speak for themselves. I mean, he understood violence, but I knew it because I didn't pick up on this at the time. He was the first person not to talk to me through how to. He talked to me through how I. Not me, himself, talking about himself. It wasn't, here, Greg, this is what I teach Navy SEALs to do. This is how to do this stuff. I, too, could teach you to do this stuff. The conversation started by him talking about how he personally, him saying, this is my experience. This is what's happened to me in the past. This is how violence almost killed me. This is how I've seen violence destroy men that go into harm's way, elite soldiers. This is how I've seen this violence destroy women, housewives, young, it didn't matter. But he talked about his experiences. He had been there. He had been the target of violence. He had experienced violence. And so when he started talking about violence, when he started talking about his training and his strategies and concepts, he never once talked from how to. He never once taught how to. Everything came from how I. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Because it took me a number of years to figure this out. But I knew in the first 30 minutes I would do this for the rest of my life. And let me just maybe throw a little tail end on this to try to clarify this, and then I would love to get your guys' feedback on it. But the biggest difference is this. You see, when you've suffered something, right? When you've suffered trauma, when you have I don't care if it's trauma or not. When you have a problem, a real problem, something that impacts your fucking life, something that has to be solved. So you have a source of pain, source of trauma, source of frustration, whatever it is in your life, you have that problem. That problem's fucking real to you. It might not be real to anybody else. It might not even be real to other members of your family. But when you have this problem, it's your fucking problem. It's like it's your burden. It's your trauma. It's your secret, your sickness, your whatever the fuck it is. When we have limitations in our lives, whatever they are, physically, mentally, emotionally, and they are preventing us from becoming better versions of ourselves, and even more importantly, when they're fucking destroying you. When you know they're not just neutral. These things are fucking destroying your life. That shit's real to you. Well, what you want more than anything is you want somebody that fucking understands. I mean, basic human needs is to be heard and understood. But yet, almost all of us, when we have a problem, there's all these people in the world that are teaching solutions to problems, right? When you think, oh, fuck, this is really good. They're teaching a solution. But the problem is everybody's teaching it from fucking how to. Here's how to. Here's how to earn $1 million in a month. Here's how to sell real estate. Here's how to defend yourself. Here's how to this. The problem with a lot of this how-to shit, not that there isn't some people out there that are sharing their methodology for how they did it, but the second you teach from a how-to, you're not heard and understood. And when it comes to something like violence and it comes to fucking trauma, like I had been down the how-to. Let me phrase it this. This is the way it reads to me, or the way it feels to me. When somebody teaches from a place of how-to, it's taught from a fucking place of constrictive teaching. Because it comes from a fucking bias. A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teacher that has trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and goes, fuck man, I swear by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It changed my fucking life. When I started taking jiu-jitsu, I was a 13-year-old fucking punk. I had no discipline. I was, the police were, I was arrested for petty crimes. I was skipping school. Then I got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu and the discipline it taught me and this, and it could be kickboxing, it could be boxing, it could be fucking judo. I don't give a shit. It could be weightlifting. But when you get into this thing, you go, it changed my life. It taught me discipline. It taught me respect. It taught me all this different stuff. It helped me grow stronger physically, mentally. All true, right? But guess what? Now all of a sudden you form a bias because jiu-jitsu was your thing. Like jiu-jitsu was the thing for you, right? So now you learn it and you start teaching how to, because you forget that it's your truth. Like you start teaching it like it's the truth. And that has limitations. So when people teach from how to, it's a place of, it's coming from a place of bias. It's constrictive. But when you have somebody that teaches from a place of you find somebody that has suffered the problem that you are now suffering, that has faced the demons, the trauma, the struggles that you have faced. And they don't come from a place of fucking bias. They have solved the problem. They have grown beyond this. But they share with you how they say, here's how I did it. Here's my truth. Here's how this worked for me. And you see that it's very fucking different. Because my instructor from day one didn't try to profess to me that he had the truth. He didn't try to teach me a style. He didn't try to push style and techniques and art and all this shit down my throat and put that in front of me. No. Instead, he connected from a place of reality. He just shared to me, this is what I experienced. And it was funny because I say this all the time, but as he sat there talking, it was like I was in a fucking holodeck. Like when he was talking about how violence had touched his life and his experiences with violence, from the physical to the mental, the trauma, all of that shit, it was like he was narrating my life. Different details, but the same experience. And yet he never once tried to set himself up as like, look at everything I know. Look at all that I could teach you. I am the guru. I'm up on the pedestal and I will show you how you too can ascend to the pedestal. No. He was down on the same level saying, listen, I get it. This is my story. This is my truth. This is how I solved this problem for me. And this is how I've solved this problem for these guys and these guys. This is what's working for my clients. This is why they're bringing me in to do this, because this is how I solved it. This is what's working for them. And you see, this how I is collaborative, not constrictive. How to is constrictive. How I is collaborative. Because the second you have someone who goes, listen, let me tell you how, like, I can share with you what worked for me. That's all I can do. This is how I solved the problem. This is how this has worked for me. And now I've done this. I've shared this with other people. And it has worked for them. Why? Because we have figured it out. Like, there's immutable concepts. It worked for me. It worked for them. But there's also been a tweaking, a meeting of the minds. I've helped them adapt this so that it works for them, because now there's not one person seeking a solution. There's two people. But it starts from a place of experience. Somebody's been there and said, listen, I have to put less, I don't have to put as much thought into this because you've been there. This worked for you, so let's start there. Why don't I start with what worked for you? But if we come to something where you go, oh, this doesn't work for you, maybe it's because a different belief system, maybe it's because of a different body type. It doesn't matter what it is, but guess what? This collaborative effort goes, our only care is to find a solution. And so the how I becomes this collaborative effort. It's based in freedom. There's no bias. And you guys would have experienced this over 28 years, because this is how I was taught to teach, and this is what I do, is I teach from the how I. And that's the part I want you to chime in on with it. But actually, let me pause there and throw this to you guys, because that was a lot of stuff, a lot of context for tonight's conversation. But maybe you guys can visually jump in if you have stuff, and let me know just how this sits with you.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, we've been watching you do this for over 2 decades, doing exactly what you're talking about. And I think that's why over all these years, like anybody who ever spent any time in front of you, training, or even at a course, at a lecture, whatever it was, I think there was always kind of this resounding feeling of like, well, there's many, but some of them are like, man, like this guy he's different. It's different. Something about what he's doing is different. Like, people are always like, man, he's such a good speaker. And I don't know, just you put people in front of you and people respond. And that happens across the board every time without fail. And I mean, obviously out there's lots of people who are really good speakers because they're trained to be really good speakers. There's probably certain tactics and strategies people use in building lectures and stuff like that. And that's not why you're a good speaker. I think it's because of this process you're talking about. The reason you can just go off on a 4-hour course or lecture and jam through it all and have it just come out effortlessly is because of what you said. It's because you're speaking your truth. You're talking about, this is how I did it. This is why it works for me. Well, that's effortless because it's true. Do you know what I mean? If you're trying to convince people of something that you don't 100% know or haven't experienced yourself, you have to memorize the steps. You have to know the process, learn the process, try to teach the process. It's a very different feeling, I think. And so that was just, I don't know, that just kind of hit me as you were talking. I'm like, I've always seen that through all the years. And I don't think until even more recently, I really understood why. And that goes right back to the very first demo I saw. I had that massive perception shift in probably 45 minutes. Yeah. Not that it even took the full demo, but it's like, why? Well, that's exactly why. Because and I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea that it was a how I versus a how to, but it didn't matter because the effect it had on me was so big. It was like, I need this. I need to stop everything I'm doing and I need to do this. And that's where it all came from, because there's just that immediate belief. It's like I was already on board. And we used to always talk about perception, oh, you got to change people's perception, change their perception. It's true. But this is how you change people's perception. And I think that's the part I never really fully understood for a very, very long time. And luckily it didn't matter. I mean, it's way better once you do understand it. But at the same time, it's like, work the process because the process works. Yeah. So because you taught that way and you learned that way and we learned that way, you kind of get it by osmosis, if nothing else. But of course, control follows awareness. So.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah. Bradley, anything?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dustin's saying. And, like, one of the things that for me really pops in my mind is, when we can reflect back on scenario training that we've done. And I remember times where we would be working scenarios and that would spark some sort of evolution in terms of the application or the applying of a certain strategy. And I thought it was really cool because, like we'd be sitting around after reviewing video and you're like, and it's like, well, this is how I'm doing it. And that would spark something because, well, this was I am actually not implementing the strategy like I used to implement it. I find with the challenge that I was facing in that scenario that was in front of me, that particular type of energy that we were portraying, because we took the information from what we could find, the resources in the media and news and about real live accounts of how people were doing things. And then as that evolved, it's like, I actually find that this is working for me. I'm doing it this way. Same strategy, right? But just applying it, like making it more effective. And how many times have we had that evolution? It's like, actually, this is what's working better now. Like, and because it was like this is not because, oh, this is what's working better because, oh, I saw something online or I went to, it's like, no, this is what's working better because we just had that moment of self-discovery through experience. And it's like, oh, fuck, this is powerful. Now, when we have that experience and we have that evolution and that growth, it's like, yeah, did we hone in on what the root change was and make that even more effective on a physical level or whatever happens to be? Of course we did. But it was like, so many times like, oh yeah, no, we're doing it this way, because this is what's working for me because of the energy that we happen to face. Like, it's riddled and throughout everything that we do.
Yeah. That was really good. Both you guys, your feedback is awesome because, and I love that, Brad, you specifically zeroed it in even to like the path that our training, like what's the future of our training look like? Like, what are we going to be doing in 5 years? How will our training change? And I think that question, like imagine for a second if we had a head organization that was in charge of developing the curriculum. Like you'd look at like a government organization, like law enforcement, military, whatever it is. And it takes 5 to 7 years, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, depending on certain things, of research to come up with a curriculum to say, here's the program that we're going to teach. By the time that program is implemented and trickles down from the top to the bottom, from the tip of the spear to the base of the spear, the program's already outdated.
Yeah.
And the theater of operations has changed. And so by the time that, then what happens is the spear is shattered in many different places. It's ineffective. It's not functional. It's the wrong tool for the job. But by the time the currents can shift, by the time people figure out to revamp the program, you're a decade or two behind the curve. And what Brad's talking about, which is so pertinent to this conversation, is we are having every day in our training, in the scenarios, in our nonstop, constant research of criminal behavior. We study violent criminals. We study them, and within that, you are having a reality check. You are saying this is what's happening, and so there is a constant churning, a constant turnover. You're constantly rototilling your content, because you're having to adapt to the ever-changing theater of operations, to what's the threat today. Like, shit changes fast, and you have to change with it. So it's based off this thing, though. Here's the thing. We are experiencing this. It's not from a how-to. It's how-I. That stuff that we see, the change, the new bad guy blueprint, the new way they're attacking, the new whatever it is, the new ruse that they're using, all this stuff gets pulled back and put into the scenarios, and all of a sudden we go, well, fuck, this changed this. We have to adapt this. We have to adapt that. But you're experiencing this stuff. And so it always comes from a place, well, how did I do in this? Well, this fucked me up. Okay, well, that's my truth then, isn't it? We talk about every day in training, we're constantly finding the weak link. It's like every day you go out there, it's like you have a high pressure pipe. And every day you go out there and you take your little hammer and you're tapping on it and you're looking for the metal to flake. You're looking for imperfections, wear and tear in the pipe. You get what I mean? Like you need to do this, because if you recognize and go, fuck, listen, this shit's cracking, this shit's weakening here. But someone go, that pipe won't crack for 3-5 years. Yeah, but the point is, it's on its way to cracking. So we're gonna fucking stop it right now. And it's like, it's this thing where, like, the analogy is a silly pipe in it. We're talking about our fucking lives. We're talking about other people's lives. And Dustin, you mentioned how, like, for me, this has always been the only way that I know how to teach this stuff is by just sharing how I solved my problem right from, being in a pure victim mindset, being physically, mentally, emotionally fucking destroyed, broken, my life burning, like not living, not the person I wanted to be, like right from that point up to today. And I didn't just solve a problem. I didn't have an instructor or a mentor who taught me how to solve a problem that existed 28 years ago. At the time, in that moment, he shared with me how he had done it. He shared with me how he was helping other warriors do the same thing. These guys were going, I remember the story. These guys were going, these guys were having real world experiences and coming back with things that had failed. Whether it was a physical strategy, tactic, or tool, whether it was something that, a mental or emotional gap in their training that allowed a certain amount of trauma in. And they were processing through. So everything, the whole world that I was involved in was all these people going, well, fuck, here's my experience. Here's what I just went through. And here's how it went great. And here's how it fucked up. It fucked me up. It didn't work. People died. Like, we were always taught, one of Paul's favorite things in the back was like, this shit has been blood tested. This is not theory. I'm not teaching you from how to. I'm not teaching you from a curriculum that's been passed down from grandmaster to grandmaster. I'm not teaching you from a syllabus. I'm not teaching you from the confines of a dojo or a training hall. This is why we've never done, this has always been person to person and backyard training. Because I'm teaching you from the street. I'm teaching you from my home. I'm teaching you from the epicenter of my fucking life. Not from a business. Not behind a sign. Not behind uniforms and all that stuff. And this is all wrapped in that shift from how to how I. And then you have all of these operators, these fucking warriors that are living this every single day, and they are all coming together, and there's no uniforms. There's no, like, these guys would show up and train, and there's no uniforms, there's no formalities. It was just people with experiences, people that got together to go, how I. And man, those conversations and those training, shit was fluid. It was collaborative. Yeah, there's immutable concepts. The strategies we use, the tactics we use, the tools we use, they're immutable concepts. Like, there is an immutable truth about how the human body is injured and what those injuries do to somebody, and what are the more efficient ways to create those injuries. What are the most efficient strategies, ruses, whatever, for unconventional war, all that shit. They're just immutable truths. But it's this collaboration of how I. And that is so powerful. So what will our training look like in 3 years? What will our training look like in a year? The best part is, I have no idea. All I can tell you is that it will be exactly what it needs to be to continue being my truth that allows me to overcome and not just survive, but thrive in the challenges of my life, whether that's violence or whether that's just the fook, the fear, uncertainty, the chaos, and the radicness of life. And that's a powerful fucking process. Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it makes me think of just looking back and how often we say this saying, and it's like, failure is feedback.
Yeah.
And we do that on the physical realm, in the weaponizing process, psychological, mindset, all the time. Like, in every area, you could say failure is feedback. And it's like, it kind of hit me even in part of this conversation. It's like, well, why do we say that? Because if we say something, even on the physical side or realm of weaponizing, it's like, oh, failure is feedback. I tried to implement a strategy. Oh, the way I was trying to implement that, it didn't work. Failure is feedback. Perfect. Then how do we make it work for you, for your truth, for where you're at, to implement the strategy that is going to save your life, save your family's life, whatever that happens to be. But like, the whole, it's always been that way.
Yeah.
Imagine even just taking failure's feedback out of the weaponizing process for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Well, it would be like, how? Like, you can't, like,
Yeah.
then you're teaching from a syllabus and it's never evolving.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm teaching this to you because that's how I was taught.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because I've written in some of my pre-show notes just when as I reflect on my experience, but like, you know, for the first decade, 10 years of my training, you know, and being one-on-one, like that's why I traveled down there. That's why I spent the money that I spent. I did this face-to-face, one-on-one, not in group classes, not in group seminars. None of that shit existed for me. This was all one-on-one. I moved down there, lived with them. I leached my way into their entire world. And I didn't care what the cost was. And I don't just mean financial, I mean personal, emotional. I leached my way into their lives because I knew instantaneously that's what it took. These guys were living training. They were not teaching training. They weren't teaching, they were living. And you had to be there. Paulie used to always tell me, you can't put a price tag on being around. And that's where that really meant. Because, yeah, like lots of people could go and attend, you know, at a certain point in different evolutions of his career, you could go and attend a seminar of his. You go do a weekend course with him. But that's where you got the how-to. Now, he always taught it. He was just sharing his truth. But in a 5-hour time frame, you have to kind of build it into, well, here, let me show you this. Here's how to do. And then the students are sitting there going, hey, show me how to do this and how to do that. Show me how to do this. They weren't interested. Like the inner circle of these guys were warriors, professional warriors, and they were living this. And I saw that. I knew that. That's what attracted me that very first day when he sat with me one-on-one, just sat there on the floor of his fucking garage, and he shared his personal shit with me. There's no sales, no teaching, no instructorship, just a man who had been in conflict fighting for his life and had solved that fucking problem. And was helping other warriors who were in the same conflict or about to be in that fucking very real conflict, not hypothetical, real world, real time. And he was sharing with them his truth, and they were reflecting back on him their truth, and there was this collaborative thing happening. And that was shaping and forming and molding what the training experience was. And I knew I had to be part of that. And so I just did. I was like, I'm the lackey. I'm the fly on the wall. I'm the whatever you need me to do, whatever you need me to, I'm here. Just, I want in on this. And that was the experience. And then that's exactly how I formulated my company, was like, that's the only way I know how to do this. It comes from a place of saying, when people come in and say, there's no fucking curriculum. Yeah, the weaponizing process is like, I'm going to show you the immutable strategies, tactics, and tools. These are immutable concepts. But the journey is about mentorship. The journey is about the truth, about the how I, and sharing this experience, which is why our tribe is so connected. It's why guys like you have been around for over 2 decades. I got a text today from one of our members. You guys, Ben, right? Remember Ben Wilson, yeah. Right? So Ben texted me today. Ben, you know, we're just catching up and stuff, and I haven't seen Ben in, I don't know, a decade. And Ben, I mean, it was the greatest compliment, you know, and Ben's law enforcement, and Ben just, you know, was like, I will argue with anybody that your training is the top training, tier 1 training. And you know, here's what I'm getting. It's not about the training. You can talk about the physical training and be like, oh, it's good. I don't care. What he's talking about, and he's like, this is why he sees today guys that were around even before he was around, and he trained with us for over a decade, that are still around today. But what he was getting at was it's that connection to the truth. Because what it gave him was it allowed him not only to weaponize his mind and body, but it gave him access to his truth as a weaponized man, as a warrior, to do the job, to be the husband, to raise the family, to be a member of our society. It connected him with that truth. And that's because it was taught from a how I, not a how to. That's the experience. That's why this community is so tight. That's why people want to be part of this community. It's not
Yeah,
because of. Sorry, Dustin, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's like we say this all the time too, but it's like this isn't something we do. This is who we are, and the reason it's who we are is exactly what you're talking about. It's because from day one, it's about building it into the person,
Yes.
right? Like Brad talked about physically, psychologically, mental, like all of it. It's all being woven into the actual person. And so yeah, even before you mentioned talking to Ben, like I've run into people, we all have over the years, people who you knew from training 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and guaranteed every time, with the exception of you, because you're out in public eye, people know you're still training. But if you run into someone who doesn't, or before we started podcasting and we weren't online, guaranteed first question out of their mouth, you still training? Always. That's always what people asked, always what people wanted to know.
Yeah.
And I know I can speak for Brad, 100% certainty. There was always like, yeah, like, of course like, how could I not be?
Yeah.
And it's like, but to have that kind of, where it's almost, it is funny because we can't even fathom stopping.
Yeah.
And if it was just how to from day one, like, oh yeah, this is how you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. That's not built in. It doesn't become a part of who you are. Yeah. Not in the same way. You know what I mean? And so, I think that's such a big part of what allows people to stay connected for so long. And even the people who maybe don't come out and physically train necessarily, like Ben, he still feels connected. He still felt connected to be like, I got to send Greg a text today. Yeah. For whatever reason, whatever's going on in his life. He's like, I want to reach out. I want to reconnect.
Yeah. He wanted a copy of an old training video. And I sent it to him, and I sent it to him, and he's just like, "Fuck that! I got goosebumps." And I'm like, "Yeah, man." And he's just like, "Oh, it's so good." Yeah. But and that's what it is, because it's the truth thing, right? Which is kind of what got my mind thinking about talking about this tonight was, and it is tough to put into words, but here, let me put it this way, right? Like, to figure out your truth, you got to do shit. Like, you gotta do stuff. And like for me, shit happens to us. You do shit happens. And then it's real. And there's this problem. I don't think anybody really learns truly to defend themselves unless they have some experience. You know what I mean? Like, they have some experience. And I don't mean like even a violent street. I mean, like when we get people that come into us, a lot of people that come to us have zero experience. They've never done martial arts. They've never done combative sports. A lot of them never even played, physical sports like combat or, contact sports. But, and a lot of them are like, I've never been in a fight, never been in an assault. But what happens is when they come in, we don't start teaching. We don't start teaching how to. We start sharing and giving experiences, because we all have a truth in our lives. And the training becomes experience based. And people, like, we share with them, like, I don't know how many thousands of people that I have, when they come in, the first thing that's happening is we're helping them, we're guiding them through an experience, like my experience, your guys' experience, your truth, our truth. You're sharing this truth with them, and there is a visceral, emotional experience that people go through. But when they go through this anchors it for them. This allows them to find their truth, because for some people that have never been in a fight, never just all that type of stuff, their truth is a moment in life when they felt helpless. Their truth is a moment in their life where they felt vulnerable, where they were made to feel less than. And sometimes it's just an instant, or sometimes it's a series of small things that happen, whether it was in their childhood, through people they knew or strangers or whatever. But we all have moments where we are completely exposed and vulnerable, and where we don't know what to do, or didn't do what we would have liked to do, or whatever it is. And it can be, again, physical, mental, and emotional, but we all have these experiences of being made to feel less than, or vulnerable, or scared, or whatever it is. And when you share from a place of your truth first, not let me show you how, but a place like from that vulnerability, from that experience, and you share, and they're seeing other victims, other people that have had this experience, and that's all being shared, you become part of that. I mean, a first-hand experience or a second or third-hand experience, we're all impacted by the experiences. Not only that we have firsthand, like I said, in our lives, but of the people that we surround ourselves with. And again, I think I'm just trying to hammer home that, like, when you have experienced something, shit's happened. Then the process of saying, let's solve this problem collaboratively, not from a place of bias. If something doesn't work for you, fuck it. Like, you don't need it. There is other ways to do this. There is no, like, you can't, there is, like, forget talking about styles and techniques and the things that separate us. And just talk about, like, let's just collaboratively understand immutable concepts, strategies, tactics, and tools, and let's fucking figure out how to allow you to live in the safety and the certainty that you want in this world. Because there are fucking these people in the world that if you give them even half a fucking chance, all they want is to fucking wreak destruction down on your life and the things you love. And it's that's why people are like, well, how does this? It's so tough to put this stuff into words, because it's a fucking experience, and it comes from this how I. But that's why, like, I mean, you guys have your truth, and we did a 5-day combat school not that long ago, in August here, just last month, and this is what we focused on for 5 days, was reconnecting and rediscovering and tapping into your truth, and each of us has our own truth. So each of us, when we teach this, it's coming from our truth. And that's what allows people to then experience their truth. Because each of us, our truth is very different. But the immutable concepts of what we're teaching and stuff, it's the same. It's a framework. But it has the freedom because it's collaborative. And it's just such a powerful thing. And maybe then you guys can jump in on this, because this is probably really all I have to say about it is, this is what I wish for everybody. I mean, like, listen, you can have great instructors and they're going to teach you the how-to. And that you can get a lot of skill, a lot of talent, you can grow, it can change your life, all of that stuff. But for me, the trauma that I had, I could never, and after the way, like, over a day, the how-to would never have saved me. I just know that. I needed the one-on-one connection with somebody that had achieved what I was trying to achieve, that had suffered the trauma and the problems that I was experiencing in my life at that time. And it's funny how when I found someone who taught from that how I mindset, how over the next 28 years, like, in my life, it's continued to be like, because we all have problems. I still have the truth of the struggles that I face, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the different, life's a fucked up thing. And yet every time, whether it's been conflict, violence, physical, mental, emotional, for me or for other people that when I'm around, whether it's that, or whether it's, like I said, the fear, the fook of life, the fear, the uncertainty, the chaos, the erraticness of life, it's being connected to the truth and having that collaborative tribe where, it's allowed me to not just survive my life, which a lot of people do. Life's not meant to just survive, man. We're meant to fucking thrive in this world. And again, I know for me, that's what this is. So the how-to versus the how-I. If you understand this, you can control follows awareness. Dustin, you said it earlier. Then you can seek it out in your life. Find somebody who's speaking from a place of how-I, not from a place of how-to. And when you find that person that resonates on the problem or challenge you have in your life, that's the person you go to. There might be a million other gurus teaching how-to, but find the one person that's teaching from how-I that connects with you, and I guarantee your life will never be the same. It'll change you forever for the better. Anything else on your guys' end on this that you want to throw in?
Yeah, one thing that kind of popped in my head as you're talking was we did a podcast. I don't know how many weeks ago about you only do what you believe that you could do,
Yeah.
right? And when you think about that podcast and what we discussed there, and you think about how we were talking tonight about how because if people are learning the how to, like, oh, do this, do this, do this, and they don't believe that they could fucking do that, then when they are faced with violence, they're going to be questioning, they're going to have hesitation, they're going to have doubt because it's not linked to their truth. It's not linked to their how I protect myself and how I protect my family. It's going to be linked to like, do this. And it's like, but if you don't believe it, you don't believe it's going to work, you don't have it connected to the how I. And I just think, like, again, I said it earlier in this session, it's like, it's through everything that we do.
Yeah.
On all levels. And like that popped in my head and I thought it'd be a good connection to make to people.
That was perfect. Yeah, it's a very powerful connection to make. Dustin.
Yeah, again, just more sharing on my own experience and how I ended up here. And I had the how to. I came from traditional martial arts. I was doing Taekwondo for years and years and years. I'd achieved my black belt, which of course that's a big deal when you're in traditional martial arts. And I moved on to having my own class in a nearby town. So not just, come up to the front and teach, but like literally running my own school. So I mean, like, as far as that goes, as a young guy, I was like, well, fuck, I've made it. This is what it's all about. Yeah. And it was like, again, coming back to that demo, just 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it was, of someone talking and it was just like unreal how fast that house of cards fell for me. Even though I was not only had been taught how to fight, how to survive, how to protect yourself, I was also teaching it. And it's like just how quickly I was willing to let all of that go. Something that had been a goal for a very long time and I'd achieved it. And it wasn't because like, oh, I got it, now I'm going to move on. No, not at all. It was just so earth-shatteringly different that it was like there was no choice. But and then the only other thing I'll throw in is when I was teaching how to, there must have been a little how I, because we do have one of my former students weaponizing. So I got through to one of them.
Actually, two. One of them, yeah.
We've had two over the years.
Yeah. When your truth set you free, you set a couple other people jumped out of the cage with you, right?
I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, of course. That's hilarious. Yeah. It's. I think we've. It's such a powerful conversation, and again, I think I've already wrapped up for myself. So I just again say like, it's some the people that come to us, it is the truth. It is the how I. It is. That's all we can do. This is how, like, this is what I experienced. This is how I've solved this problem. This is the epicenter of how I'm thriving in my life. This is how I am achieving being, the best husband that I like, having being wealthy. I have a great family life. Like, I have great relationships. We have great friendships. We have great, like, I don't have a single client, a single person that I train and spend time with that I don't absolutely fucking like love. Like that I don't like, because we don't all have the same interests. It's not because we all listen to the same type of music or we all enjoy the same type of movies or we all dress the same way or none of that is a factor. None of that is consistent enough. It's because you have people that are all connected to their truth, finding their truth, wanting to be like warriors, people that want to weaponize, to be the protectors, ready, real, resilient, relentless, and ruthless in their lives. Like the people that wear the band, the people that own the coin, that have our warrior coin, like that. It's the fundamental beliefs of who we are, and yet it's not coming from this how-to. We're not the Borg. You're not turning everybody into the same person. And I love that. Like, that is so powerful. And what makes this tribe so diverse and yet so tightly bonded, and that's a huge part of life. So again, one word, the how to how I. When I found someone that understood that was teaching from that one word difference, that shift, changed my life and continues to change my life. And that's at the core of my life, of our business. And again, I just appreciate you guys so much, because it's so powerful to have, I teach weaponizing from my truth. You teach it from your truth, Dustin. Brad, you teach it from your truth. Henry from his, Shane from all of our core. Like, we all teach from our own truth. And yet we're all connected on this journey of wanting to weaponize good people, to allow them to protect themselves and their families from violent criminal assault. So it's a very, very powerful thing to be a part of. And I'm just super grateful to have you guys as part of this tribe and to be out there impacting the world in the ways that you guys are. And again, thank you tonight for your time. It's just one of the ways you are contributing and impacting. So I thank you so much for your time, your energy, your input, your perspectives, your truth. And that's where we'll wrap it for tonight. So, all right, everybody, listen, thank you so much for watching, for joining us here tonight. Remember now, every Thursday night at 7:30 live, you can catch us streaming here on YouTube. We used to do it on Facebook. Now we're doing exclusively streaming on YouTube. So please subscribe, set the notifications to get the alerts whenever we go live. I'm throwing in a few extra podcast episodes throughout the course of the week. That'll ramp up here hopefully in the next little bit. I have a lot of content I want to deliver to you guys. But every Thursday night, join us live here for sure. We will be here with Coach Dustin, Coach Brad. And that is it, anybody. Any questions, anything we could ever do, comment, please. We're here to serve. And I just want to thank you so much for investing your time and energy with us. And we hope that we are providing the value that you're looking for. So that is everybody. Until next time, please stay safe, stay weaponized, and we will chat again soon. Hey, thanks so much for listening. And listen, if you found this content valuable, here's 3 different ways that I can help you weaponize for free. First, grab a free copy of my ebook, The Education of a Weaponized Man. To get your free copy today, head to ebook.awakentheprotectar.ca. Number 2, you can take a free workshop where you will discover the 10 insights violent criminals don't want you to know. To take this workshop, head to workshop.awakentheprotectar.ca. The third way is to head to my website and check out all of my Freeline programs that cover everything from mindset to strategies. To check us out, go to awakentheprotectar.ca. And finally, leave a 5-star review so that we can reach more good people like you who are ready to weaponize and rise regardless.